It is clearly over for the Denver Broncos and it is officially time for them to be sellers and restart everything. The Denver Broncos have now dropped down to a 1-5 record after losing a Thursday night football game to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, a lot of people, including myself, did not expect them to go ahead and win this game, but now this is where questions start getting asked about this Bronco team. In my opinion, I do not think the Broncos are going to go ahead and turn it around and make playoffs or anything like that. So in my opinion, I think it's time for them to restart everything and start selling a whole bunch of assets. So on today's video, that's what I'm going to be breaking down. Also, I think it's a good idea to talk about Rusell Wilson and his future in the NFL and just his future with this Broncos team because things are looking wild. But before I get into it, make sure to drop a like and subscribe and comment what you guys think about the Denver Broncos, and let's get into it. Okay, starting off, I think we can all agree that this Broncos team is horrible. I mean, the offense is mediocre in my opinion. Sometimes it can do good, sometimes it can do really bad like we saw in Kansas City on that Thursday night. And the defense had one good game this year in my opinion. It was that game versus Kansas City. They held Mahomes for a little bit, but you know, in any other game this year, the defense has been horrible. It's ranked 32nd in a lot of categories and it's just not good whatsoever. But I think we can all agree the Denver Broncos are not going anywhere. They're in a bad spot. So let's break down and see what they should go ahead and sell and what they should do continuing going on through the season. First off, let's talk about the Broncos wide receiver room because in my opinion, they got some nice assets here and I think they would be willing to sell some of them. Courtland, Sutton, and Juedy are two very interesting players coming out of this conversation. As you guys can see in the media, there's a lot of talk about the Broncos either trading Sutton or Juedy, just a lot of talk going around. And with the trade deadline coming up soon, I think the Broncos are really going to consider trading one of these guys. In my opinion, if the Broncos go ahead and do trade one of these receivers, in my opinion, I think it's easily going to be Juedy. Because if you look at Juedy's stats, it's just really not working out in Denver with Juedy being there. They use Sutton way more. You can just tell just based off the stats. Courtland Sutton this year has 25 receptions, 275 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Juedy only has 20 receptions, 222 yards and 0 touchdowns. In my opinion, I just think it would make more sense to go ahead and trade Juedy. I mean, there's already some rumors going around about him getting traded to the Colts possibly, the Green Bay Packers, just a whole bunch of teams I feel like that could go ahead and use a guy like Juedy. And I think another thing that helps his case even more getting traded, I mean, we saw what happened on Thursday night with that whole thing happening with Steve Smith. I just maybe feel like Sean Payton's not going to want this and want to deal with this on his team, so they might go ahead and ship him. So definitely you should not be surprised whatsoever if either Courtland Sutton or Juedy, in my opinion, it's probably going to be Juedy. If either of them get traded, go ahead and get shipped before the trade deadline. Now, another big trade that people are talking about with a player on the Denver Broncos about him getting traded, which in my opinion, I don't think is going to happen, is Patrick Surtain. Now, this is a very interesting topic to talk about. In my opinion, Pat Surtain is one of the best upcoming young corners in the NFL currently, and people are saying that there's potential that maybe Denver wants to get some value out of him or go ahead and try to trade him for something. Here's my take on it. I don't think that's going to happen. If I'm being for real with you guys, I feel like the Denver Broncos would never even think about trading Pat Surtain. I mean, he's still on his rookie contract. I know he's balling out and the Broncos are losing, but with him still on his rookie contract and him still playing well, I feel like that's a piece that the Broncos really want to keep for the future. So I don't think the Broncos would go ahead and trade Pat Surtain, even though some people I know they want it. Some people really want it to go ahead and help their team, but I just do not see the Denver Broncos trading Pat Surtain. Like I said, young upcoming corner, just don't see it happening anytime soon. In my opinion, those are the players I feel like the Denver Broncos are most likely to go ahead and talk about selling. I mean, some people might also want to have a conversation about Justin Simmons potentially getting traded. I mean, I really don't see it. I feel like they would have to give up a pretty significant amount. I feel like the Broncos really like Justin Simmons and I think he's a great safety, but in my opinion, I don't see Justin Simmons getting traded either. But I could definitely see one of the receivers getting traded, but Pat Surtain, Justin Simmons, I don't know. Maybe if a team puts up a significant amount, but I really don't see those players getting traded. Now, I think it's a good time to talk about the future with this Denver Broncos team with Sean Peyton and the really big question going in the future, Rusell Wilson, and what the Broncos should do this year and what their draft order should be. Should the Broncos go ahead and tank or try to go ahead and win games? Let's get into it. First off, let's talk about Mr. Wilson himself. First off, I just want to say the whole Rusell Wilson trade will go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history, and the Rusell Wilson contract that the Broncos went ahead and gave Wilson once they traded for him will also probably go down as one of the worst contracts in NFL history. Because I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this guy is very, very hard to move for the Denver Broncos right now if they wanted to go ahead and trade him. Because you want to know why? First off, no one's really going to want him because, I mean, Rusell Wilson, he's been playing okay this year, but let's be honest, he's not the answer in Denver. And when this guy is making a base salary of $48 million, no one's going to want to trade for a guy like Russ. So yeah, I'm going to be honest with you guys. The Broncos are kind of stuck with him. I mean, there's nothing they can really do. They can't trade him. No one's going to want him. It's just, they're pretty much stuck with him. I heard people potentially talking about maybe they should sit him for the rest of the year. maybe see what they can do with him in the offseason, because you wouldn't want him to get injured, because apparently he has an injury clause in his contract and that goes into effect, and just stuff would get worse from right there if that were to get activated. So yeah, they're pretty much just in a tough spot. I mean, in my opinion, I think the Broncos really just need to tank and they need to get somebody else, because Russ is clearly not the answer. Or Drake May, Caleb Williams, someone else that is not Rusell Wilson in this offense, clearly. And how they would go ahead and do that, man, there's a lot of things that they could possibly do. Potentially, they could go ahead and play Rusell Wilson for the rest of the year, see what happens. They know they're probably not going to win many games, maybe do that route. But the route that I'm thinking that would kind of make some sense if they went ahead and benched Rusell Wilson for the rest of the year, let their backup play so they go ahead and lose games, which would go ahead and make them go higher in draft position to hopefully draft a QB in this year's draft. Now, of course, if they go ahead and draft a QB, he's probably gonna have to sit behind Russ or something like that going into next year, unless they can go ahead and trade him in the offseason. But definitely, I know people don't like the idea of NFL teams tanking and stuff like that, but in my opinion, the Denver Broncos gotta do it. They're in a bad spot. They just got to do what they got to do. Personally, if I was the GM, Sean Peyton, or the owner of the Denver Broncos, personally, that's what I would do. I just think that's the best course of the action for the Denver Broncos and the best thing to do. So yeah, I think this really is the best way to just talk about the Broncos. I think they should be sellers at the trade deadline, worried about the future and worry about draft capital. Some people also might want to have a conversation about Sean Payton and how maybe he's overrated now, because look at him. I mean, what has he really done in Denver? And without Drew Brees, nothing. So that's another interesting conversation you could potentially have with people, but I'm not here today to have this conversation. I'm here to talk about the Denver Broncos, which I have. But I still do think Sean Payton is a good head coach, and I do think he's going to be able to bring something to Denver eventually. I just think the team is so bad right now that this cannot happen this year, and it's not going to happen. So like I said, basically to recap everything, and I think the final conclusion should be the Denver Broncos need to be sellers. They need to trade some pieces that they have, trade the assets that they have for draft picks in this year's upcoming NFL draft or in future NFL drafts. Go ahead and tank the rest of the year, in my opinion. Go ahead and get a Caleb Williams or Drake May, someone like that could really boost this team quarterback play, because in my opinion, Rusell Wilson is not the answer in Denver, and I know many of y'all can agree with that. The Denver Broncos and Broncos country itself, it is over. If you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. It is very much appreciated. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and watch this video about the Minnesota Vikings right here, and go watch this video right here about how I think the Milwaukee Bucks are unfair.